Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining from. A very warm welcome to all of you on another webinar from Digite. Uh, we do this about twice a month these days, and it's always great to get together with some known peoples, a lot of new folks who joined our webinars, and to listen to a thought leader talking about some of the most relevant topics in the current lean agile industry and in the current environment. So currently, as you can see, the topic for today's webinar is actually very current. COVID-19, is it challenging portfolio management as we know it? Brought to you by Softies from Digite. Uh, I can see some more folks are joining in, but let's get started with some of the initial portion of the webinar. So the agenda for today, we'll start with some introductions, and then I will give you a quick introduction to Digite and Softies if you don't know us enough, and then hand over to Vikas Kapila for today's main session, which is it changing COVID-19? Is it changing portfolio management as we know it? At the end of it, we will have a Q&A session. The webinar is being recorded, so you should be able to, not have to worry about taking notes, etc. We will share the recording of the webinar with you after the webinar is done within a day or two in a follow-up email. There is a Q&A box or a questions box that you should see on the right side of your screens, and you can send us a question at any time. We will take these questions at the end of the webinar, at the end of Vikas's session. So with that, very happy to welcome today's speaker, Vikas Kapila. He's a transformation consultant. He's an SPCT 5 and an AKT. My name is Mahesh Singh. I'm your host, and I'm a co-founder and responsible for marketing at Digite. And just a little bit more about Vikas. Many of you may already know him. He is probably one of the highest energy people that I know in the industry, who has been working with some of the most well-known names in the most well-known corporations in North America and elsewhere, helping those companies in the lean and agile journey. He's a business transformation practitioner and very passionate about lean and agile. Over 15 plus years of experience in a variety of different agile practices, excellent at delivering business value, simplifying the complex and delighting his customers. He's played a variety of different roles as an enterprise coach, agile coach, and functional roles in product management, etc., and of course, a leadership consultant. And as you can see, he's worked with a variety of names. Some of them should be very well-known names for you. Vikas, a very warm welcome to you. I will hand over to you in a few seconds. Just a quick word about Digite. We are a pioneer in the web-based collaboration tools for application lifecycle management and project management tooling. We've been around since 2002 and have customers around the world with nearly, as you can see, 1 million users all over the world. Headquartered here in Cupertino, California, which is where I'm based. And our products also span a variety of different lean agile frameworks. And of course, Softies is our built for safe solution for managing your safe projects. So just a quick look at what Softies provides. We provide, it's a very visual tool that provides you a fully configured solution from portfolio all the way down to team level boards. And so it's a full safe solution, supports Safe 5.0 as well as older frameworks for those of you who are not yet moved to 5.0. We provide a configurable work decomposition hierarchy capability that lets you really define your work the way you see it and configure it in the manner that you would like to across these multiple boards. And all of that data from the lowest level gets automatically rolled up to provide you updates at the highest level. We have a very interesting and somewhat new feature called the capacity planning, which has been provided based on some of our customer feedback that helps you do some capacity planning at a high level even before you do your PI planning. So you can start to get a sense of what all can you deliver as you do your high-level planning initially and before you get into the big room session. We provide a very powerful dependency board or a program board that lets you build the dependencies that you see between teams as you start to do your PI planning and as different teams work on the features and stories that they're supposed to deliver. One of the very popular features for our customers who are typically distributed, have teams around the world, and are looking for a very easy and tactile solution for working with their dependencies during the PI planning session. So very popular tool feature in our product. Uh, we provide a lot of analytics at the art level, and then from there drilling down to PI and sprint level on the one hand, and at different team levels on the other hand. So different dimensions that give you the ability to slice and dice and analyze your overall performance of on your safe projects. And at the same time, we provide a very powerful set of lean analytics. So those of you who are very strong on lean and continuous improvement, you would be really thrilled to see some of the capabilities we provide in terms of being able to measure your flow metrics and be able to understand how you're improving as you continue to use the tool. We also have a very strong set of integrations that we provide across different tools. So if you're already using tools at the team level, we integrate very nicely with it. And finally, just a last quick slide here to give you an idea of what are some of our customers that use our tools. With that, welcome, Vikas, and looking forward to your session.
Thank you, Mahesh. Welcome, everyone. Just checking if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it now in full screen mode.
Awesome. So as the topic talks about, the intent is to see how COVID is impacting us in portfolio management. And before we get into seeing how it impacts us, I always believe in setting the context, right? So if I look at the Association for Project Management and look at the definition for what portfolio management means, it's basically an element of selecting, prioritizing, and then having coordination and control of organizations' programs and projects, right? It helps us to align and implement the change initiatives that the business needs so we can keep on track with our goals while we optimize on return on investment. Over the years, we've all faced the impact of digital disruption. Would you agree? Anyone not agree? Cool. So now, how do we say it's impacting us? If whether I look at Alexa, whether I look at Cortana, whether I look at the health industry, whether I look at the paper industry, whether I look at the rocket, everything, there is more software today in a car than there is other materials, right? Millions of lines of code in the car. So every element, every business is being impacted. But did we see an impact to all of these things as drastic or as lethal as COVID-19? All industries in the last 15, 20 years have been impacted by software, have been impacted by digitization. But I think in less than 20 days, COVID-19 in March, so to say, impacted the businesses even more so, right? To an extent where the question did not remain as, do I need to do something or not? Do I want to do something or not? But what can I do to survive? It wasn't the element that we thought cash-rich businesses had was to stay in business. They could still adapt slowly, steadily to the changing market segment. This kind of accelerated all of it. It created challenges from a leadership perspective. It created challenges even for the most advanced IT organizations as they tried to sustain business continuity. If I look at some numbers from market research done by Cascade Insights, it kind of reflects and shows us there have been businesses that have been totally disrupted to businesses that have been pretty normal. But if I look at it in a whole, 80% of businesses have been disrupted in one form or shape. And when we talk to the CFOs of the organizations to see what's happened, one of the key elements that comes out concerns and where they talk about emergence, right? How do we come out of it? What it takes? What are our thoughts? So the considerations that most organizations are looking at this point is 80% thinking about global recession, decrease in consumer confidence, reduced consumption, impacts both on financial as well as liquidity and stuff, obviously, but also the emotional element, which is kind of a huge foundation for decision making from the human aspect. And again, the questions of if there is reduced revenue, if there is reduced continuity of work, there is obviously the element of workforce reduction and thereby creating a different sense of supply and demand challenge. The other question that gets asked and has been responded to is, if COVID-19 were to end today, how long would it take for the business to evolve out and come back to business as usual? I don't think it'll ever be business as usual pre-COVID, but again, that's one person's opinion. But whatever we define in the new state as business as usual, a lot of businesses, 66% think they will be back to normal in less than a month. Others think 1 to 3 months. The question mark is, when do we think COVID-19 is going to end? That's an important question, because if you look at it, historically, we've not been able to eliminate any virus. All we have done in bigger picture is manage them and reduce the fear of their impact. So if we can get to a place where we can reduce the fear of their impact and start resurging, re-emerging, what would it take? So there are, in those scenarios, 6 different sections called out again, what businesses think they're evolving to do in financial actions. Why all this conversation? Because all of these things are going to impact how the new portfolio management looks, how the evolved portfolio management looks when we come out. Gartner talks about the reset, which is pretty much in line with the conversation of turning point. If we consider the COVID-19 March as the turning point for the software age, so the first things first, we have to respond to the immediate thing that happened in March. And we did. All organizations did, in very different ways, depending on their respective context, depending on their different industry types. If I look at it from as the lockdowns in the respective areas started opening up, the recovery zone started. And you would see that the curves are overlapping each other. The organizations that feel like they can actually recover and renew and start re-establishing the new normal in less than a month are ones that had the thought process, the bigger horizon view all the time, when they were responding to the immediate lockdown, thinking of the recovery, as well as having leadership look at what the renewal mode looks like. Whereas organizations that took them as step changes, first respond, then recover, and then renew, may take longer. It's just how you focus, what learnings you're picking up. The key element in each of these spaces that is being called out that we want to be considerate about is these cannot be long cycles. The traditional way of portfolio management of 12, 18 months and stuff does not fare well at this time. I cannot say that I'll be back to thriving business in 12 to 18 months and think like my cash flow will sustain that well. So that's why if you look at it, why organizations feel that they want to be back up and running in less than a month, why organizations want to be up and running to their pre-normal state of behaviors in less than 3 months. That's literally 90% of the businesses want to be up and running in less than 3 months. That needs something new in our portfolio management, that needs us to respond in a different way, that needs us to look at things a little subtly different. This is where, for us to respond and not just react, key element there, respond, needs us to have resilience, look into our past learnings and use some of that. Now, if I look at what resilience means, right, and I found this definition very well suited to our times, is the capacity of a dynamic system. It's not just the resilience of the individuals, it's just not the resilience of human teams and stuff, but resilience as a system, the capacity of the dynamic system to adapt successfully to challenges that threaten the function, survival, or future development of the system. COVID-19 very well sets this, right? It threatened the functions, the business functions, the normal functions that we had. It has threatened the survival of individuals, entities, enterprises, all of it, as much as also the future development of the systems. So we really need a capacity, a element, and it exists within us to build on. It wouldn't be revolutionary, it has to be evolutionary. So we have to evolve, and evolution for me is small incremental change, right? So when we talk about evolution there, small incremental, it also brings the aspect of iterative. Incrementing in small iterations is what will help us be more resilient, will help us evolve. Now, if I look at enterprise strategy, right, and things that we adopted from 1992, almost 3 decades ago, work by Jim Collins from Beyond Entrepreneurship, talks about the enterprise strategy being elements that come from the mission, the vision, core values as the inputs, that is with the enterprise business drivers, this financial goals, the context, the local context of the portfolio, the local context of the enterprise, what are their distinctive competence, depending on which industry they are, depending in which region they are in, depending on which customer segment they're working with. All of that is important. And what they were working with pre-COVID as their strategy is their present context. Now COVID happens. Based on what COVID happens, what sensing, what probing have they done to figure out how do they evolve their new strategy? Does it remain unchanged, or does it evolve based on the impact that their business have? Do they plan to exit a certain business? Do they plan on pausing certain things that they were trying to do and put emphasis on other things? Does things from their backlog move forward sooner now, and things that were being aggressively looked at maybe pause for now because market conditions changed? So all of that is important, and it's almost a early pull-in of generally the enterprise formulations that work towards the second half of their business year, pulled in earlier into the business year itself as due to the impact of COVID-19. Any questions thus far before we move? Let me see if there's anything on the chat window there.
So far, no questions, but folks, if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the questions panel and let us know.
Thank you. Yeah. The importance of this is basically coming from the whole aspect. Now, if I look at the enterprise strategy and I see the impact, I want to talk about is there is a strategy, right? Pre-COVID, I had my strategic themes, I had my budgets allocated. Now, let's say my strategic themes were to have strengthened my foundations, which was basically essentially saying, let's look at my legacy platforms and see how I can either decommission them and get new elements, or how I can at least reduce the technical debt and improve on that. The others, I had growth strategy based on growing in particular regions, but my portfolio of products and my services remaining the same. So I just grow by growing into different regions or different customer segments. If I look at another growth strategy, probably those two strategic themes, let's look at it. Next one, third strategic theme of, oh yeah, I see a lot of age of software coming in, project to product is a big thing. So let me see how I can bring a little bit of digital transformation in my organization. So my third strategic theme would be, how do I integrate more of the digital element? So let's say the three themes being strengthen my foundations, next one being integrate with data, uh, and the third one being the growth in new APAC region, something like the growth in a new region. These, let's say, are the strategic themes, and we have budgeted accordingly, and my portfolio is funded and moving forward. Come March, and now I'm impacted. We have to suddenly go into business continuity plans. We have to work with essential services only. Transactions on my customer segments have reduced drastically. My revenue stream doesn't look as strong. That's what's happening right here, right? Reality today. And then come April, it's been 6 to 8 weeks of these uncertain times, and we start reevaluating and responding to what should be my new strategic themes. So I look at my portfolio context, look at my present KPIs, look at my present stack, impact. So the enterprise goes in and starts looking at what the post-COVID strategic themes should be. If I leave my strategic themes as is, will I be able to succeed and thrive in business, in my own capabilities and solutions when we emerge from COVID-19? What COVID-19 tells me now is that my customers are looking for more touchless activities. My customers are looking for more digital answers. My customers are looking for more online aspects and not as much as physical on-site elements. Even if they're looking for face-to-face, it's not physical face-to-face, it's more virtual or online face-to-face. So based on that, any business, every business needs to include that into their strategic themes. So if I want to ensure that my foundations are still strong, I want to ensure that I need, for all of that to happen, I still need to ensure that my digital aspects are integrating with data was important, and growth, obviously I want to grow in business. Maybe I want to re-emphasize the element of the new aspects that we have discovered. For that, we always recommend restate the strategic themes to include those rather than using the same labels, because each label creates its own world. As they say, words create their worlds. So maybe instead of strengthening foundations, it could be, now I really need to reintroduce my foundations or reimagine my foundations. Be innovative about your foundation, something in that sense, that's saying that whatever you were thinking of doing pre-COVID needs a reassessment, needs a rethought. Even if we need similar outcomes, we may have to do it differently, because what we were thinking could probably be done in 6 to 9 months needs to be done in less than 3 months now. How do you come to a space of that, redefine your MVP, and an MVP with a different outcome, right? Desired outcome, output will evolve too. Similarly, how can I talk at this point about the data aspect? I was talking about integrating data. Maybe that's not just enough. I need to put that essence of time, speed, and urgency in there. So maybe say accelerate data integration, or talk about digitization and digital data, something in there that tells my teams that are in executing mode that there is a increased sense of urgency to this, so that as leaders, when we provide that clarity, even in our vision statement, in our strategic themes, it really enables the execution of it to think differently. If we don't evolve our thought process on top, it becomes difficult to evolve the outcomes. If we keep doing the same things and we expect a different outcome, that's the definition of insanity. So if we really wanted a different outcome, whether that is urgency of speed, whether it's innovative in thought, we need to state it differently also. One of the key elements at this state to be able to do that is something that I have actively used, and I like this representation from Scaled Agile, and so I use their pictures here. But the tool's been there forever and been actively used. SWOT analysis and the TOES analysis. SWOT helps us understand what my strengths are today. Given the impact of COVID-19, what are still my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities? What are my threats? As an organization, and then use this information to put together in the TOES analysis to figure out how can I use my strengths to exploit, maximize the opportunities right now. What work that we've already done, my past successes, my evolutionary paths that we've taken can help me right now. How can I apply my strengths to overcome present threats? How can I use opportunities to leverage to my benefit to overcome my weaknesses? How can I minimize my weaknesses and avoid threats? So it's important to look at it both at the external opportunities, external threats, and address them using our strengths. It's equally important to look at our internal strengths and internal weaknesses and address them using our strengths. When we look at it this from perspective, we use this information to help us explore possibilities, right? We need to apply the double diamond of design thinking. Divergent thinking, explore the possibilities, look at them, and then go into the convergent thinking. So we need to apply the divergent and convergent both at understanding the conditions today, where we talk about sensing and probing and figuring out what is the impact of COVID-19 to our businesses in the different solution segments, in the different customer segments, in the different regions. Converge on which is the most painful one, which needs our attention the most, and then think about divergently again on what are the potential solutions to those pain points, what are the potential things that we can do to address those things. Now, once you've diverged again, time to converge again to make decisions to come back and say, this is possibly the effective 2021 outlook that we can have. So from our current state 2020, what do we think? Where do we want to end in 2021? This is where we want to do the divergent elements and convergent thinking, double down on it to figure out in making our decisions. Definition for, again, something I loved from this organization called Driven that talks about resilience. Important aspect of be proactive. And this is where the element of thinking now of what are the different options, thinking from the aspect of divergence at this point, maybe not the time yet to converge, but time to at least diverge on what the possible scenarios can be is now. Because rather than making decisions, decision time may be a couple of weeks later, maybe a couple of months later as things evolve. Because key element is we are all hoping, and honestly some of us also praying, including myself, that the vaccine would be helpful. But on the other side, data also says, on information also at this point available says that at the rate the virus is evolving, it's changing, mutating, that the traditional way we've had one vaccine a year, one vaccine for a couple of years is good enough, may not be what is needed. Maybe we need to do multiple vaccines a year to be able to address the concerns that this particular coronavirus is bringing to it, right? Where the antibodies, even if you have in your thing, only sustain themselves for 3 months, and after that the antibodies are not good enough for fighting it. So with that in mind, also, yes, vaccine will be there shortly, but what impact would the vaccine bring to the industry? What impact would this? So we have to look at it from that perspective, be ready with our options, maybe not yet decisions, and iteratively, incrementally, keep building our learning cycles and evolving our businesses, evolving our portfolio, and becoming resilient to this constant evolving conditions. Questions? Thank you for being such an audience. How
So
can I
we
help?
got a few questions. Folks, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the questions panel. And here's what I'm going to do, Vikas. I'm going to bring the people who ask the questions online, and they can possibly ask the question directly. So let's start with Rob Gordick. Rob, I'm going to unmute you so that you can ask the questions directly yourself. Rob has a couple of interesting observations and would like to talk about the organizational resilience and business agility in the context of agile portfolio management. Rob, go ahead.
Hey, Mahesh, can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah.
Excellent. Hey, it's good to see you again. You're looking great. The question I have, so I just wanted to see, Vikas, with your experience, as you're engaging with your clients and such, what I'm seeing is actually that the structure of the organization has driven a lot on this, the successes or the failures of a company's ability to adapt to these significant changes in customer demand. So an example, when you look at, like, say, overall decision making, when you look at the governance practices, when you look at the working methods, I see that you're using a lot of SAFe, and that is a structure, that is a framework. But do you attest that having that organizational agility as a structure enables companies to do agile mindset thinking and agile adoption of significant change?
That's an easy one, right? Short answer, yes. Right? Having organizational agility by itself, that core competency, is key. But I think the tough element or the challenge out there is, how do you build that?
Yeah.
Because your other point is that traditionally over the years, because of our reliance on reliability, scalability, and all the lities, we've built very strong structures within our organizations, very hierarchical structures, right?
Yes.
Right, and we lose a lot of time, we lose a lot of capability to respond in the dynamics that go into that communication paths within the organization. Whereas if I look at literally from the new product development white paper written like almost 30 years ago now, right, 1984 something, and where he talked about building those networks, right, of communication, and that was adapted by Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schreiber to build Scrum. But if I look at it, when he talked about networks, he talked about networks in that white paper across multiple horizons of the organization, right? because there is the horizon that does the work, executes, but there is the similar horizons that are coordinating the work. There are horizons that are making decisions or looking at this thing. So people that are looking on day-to-day work versus people that are looking at midterm work versus people that are looking at the long-term.
Exactly. Yeah. McKinsey's 3 horizons. Yeah.
Right. And the people that are focused on 3 horizons are also different people. Now, if I look at the new product development white paper, McKinsey's 3 horizons, and look at Save the Framework, why I have an affinity to it is because there are 3 networks. There's the network of the teams that are actually executing on it. There's the network of people that are actually coordinating the work that the multiple teams of teams are doing. And there's the network of people that are actually helping with the horizon decisions 6 to 9 months, 12 months ahead, because each one has a different perspective, has a different viewpoint.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's almost like you're looking at it, metaphorically. Imagine we're all in this car, right? And say the tires, I was telling Mahesh that the tires are out of alignment and the car is going to drift off the highway if we don't do anything about it. Well, we can do something. We can steer the car in an incorrect manner so that it stays on the road, but that's not good for the car, right? That's long term, that's waste. But the person driving the car is more focused on, I just want to get to where I'm going, right? And so they're not, yeah, okay, it's an annoyance, yes, yeah, but I can deal with it. And so it's about the pain. And if the pain is significant enough, then that's when the execution, you were talking about 3 horizons, the person who's focused on first horizon, that's when they start talking to the people who are more focused on second horizon or third horizon. They start being more vocal about, look, we need to course correct. This is an issue. And I love it. I love your message. It's a good message.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Rob. Always good to hear from you. I'm going to bring on somebody else well known to many of us. Patrick, good to see you here. And I'm going to go ahead and get you on the call. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Mahesh.
Good to see you.
Hi, Vikas.
Hi.
So I was just wondering, because you're using the save as a background, and so if you're thinking about a traditional, and that was your starting point, a traditional portfolio, and you're talking about resilience. So what really makes the difference if you're talking about an agile or lean portfolio that supports resilience at the organizational level? How different is that from a traditional portfolio in your view?
So the key difference for building resilience, right, if I look at just the word definition of resilience, is being able to come out of adversity, come out of setbacks, being able to build that. And what really helps you with that is your constant practice, right? If I look at martial arts, how do I build resilience? By practicing something 1,000 practice, right? So in the agile way of doing things, in the lean way of doing things, when we have those shorter learning cycles, when we have those shorter feedback loops and this thing, we build resilience because I am practicing more often, right? If something is good, whereas in the traditional way of doing things, my practice cycle is huge.
Yeah, it might not be just practice. It might be practice under variation, right?
Right, exactly. So practice without taking the learning out of it, right? If I keep failing at it, that's the I even call traditional way of doing retrospective. Now, retrospective is such a new thing in agile and stuff, but the traditional way of doing it is I do the retrospect, I inspect and forget, right? I don't inspect and adapt. So in the same thing, if I have learning cycles and I am just calling them learning cycles, but I'm actually not taking the learnings and applying them, then I'm still using my traditional behaviors of inspect and forget. So it's important to not only have the cycle there, but also to use the cycle for the intent it was built up, right? Plan, do, check, and then adapt. And when we have that based in, and if those cycles are shorter cycles, then I then start building resilience in me as an individual. If I do it at a team level, I build it in the team. If I do that at the enterprise level, I build it at the enterprise level, right? So it's basically taking that element of that behavior is key to me.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick.
I was scared there when I heard your name.
Right.
You know how much I talk to you for Patrick. So thanks.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Let me get Sudipta online. Sudhi, hey, let me unmute you here.
Hey guys, hi Vikas, hi Mahesh.
Hi, Sudhi.
Hey, so my thought or my question is that from your experience that you've seen at different places, is this whole process of the prioritization at the portfolio level really so structured? Is it really so objective and so structured? Because my experience from, of course, it's a little while back, but still from the days that I used to be in sales directly, was this whole prioritization process of what projects go through, do not go through, is significantly influenced based on allegiances to one group versus another, internal politics, and there are all those kind of things which actually often are not put in any kind of a template or any kind of a structure. So I just wanted to get your insight that has those patterns changed from what you are seeing today, and is it really so structured and so objective in its decision making process?
Right. So it's like it's very true for anything human, right? That there is an intent and then there is the practice. So what I have seen in most organizations I work with now, that they do have a very structured approach to it, and like everything else, they 70%, 60 to 70% of the people are very structured following it. But again, then there are those 30 to 40% influential, powerful people that really want to make a mark, and they think it's the beating your chest up and being the gorilla in the room really helps them, and they start making prioritization about the highest paid person in the room or the loudest squeaky wheel in the room, and it kind of puts things out of whack. Where I've seen organizations that if the influence of the 60 to 70% that are trying to stay on the structured path, because if I would say 9 out of 10 organizations that I've worked with have a very well documented prioritization, sequencing, strategy, funding, investment funding process. And they're very in line thought process wise with the intent that we see in lean portfolio management as well. However, the key element difference that I see between the two is one is very handoff mode, the traditional one, versus where the lean portfolio talks about it being more collaborative, right? Where we are meeting more often and more collaborative rather than handoff over the course of the year. Other than that, the intent is there, but the practice, like everything else we humans do, we make it about what suits me, what's in it for me, rather than coming from a place of what's in it for the organization. The organizations where I have seen people still coming from a place where what's in it for the organization, that element, it still works. But to your point today, that is few and far apart. Most of them have had those bad habits conditioning kicking, where the hippo and the squeaky wheel prioritization is key. If I look at it lean and agile ways, this thing we also talk about how can we reduce the influence of the hippo, how can we reduce the influence of the squeaky wheel, so that empirical data actually helps you make the right strategic decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, because I think one area that I think we perhaps don't directly recognize or we haven't figured a way out is that if the core organization structure is still a pyramid where one person goes to the top over 5 others or 10 others, then very clearly it's going to be everybody at that level of position, at that level of seniority, somebody trying to establish their credentials more than others.
Agreed.
And as long as that spirit exists, I think it is hard to really break the silos and make such cooperative thinking work.
Think about this, and you and I both have some experience of it, being regional here, but is joint family versus nucleus families, right? In the joint family, there would be multiple nucleus families built in to be a joint family, and this is where it's coming in, but there would be still a head of the family. And the head of the family, if you look at the good families versus the dysfunctional one, head of the family would be more collaborative in their behavior segments and truly reflecting the servant leadership. I have seen it growing up in my younger years with my grandparents and stuff. And the dysfunctional ones would have the command and control, one person leads, no questions asked in this. But the element and essence is there. It's us, the humans, that make it work or not work, right? So command and control has been there, whether it's every company has a CEO, whether it's the Morningstar or the next traditional organization. But it's the element is, when you are the leader, are you coming from a place of building collaborative behavior, decision making, collaborative this thing, and decentralized decision making, or are you just coming from a place of command and control? There is value for collaboration, there is value for cooperation, but it is, when are you doing what? In the military also, we think it's all command and control. Not really. There's so many books, there's so many case studies, there's so many out that talk about that the military is also all about collaboration, right? So, but it is important is when to collaborate, when to cooperate, and being good with that is the important piece, I think. And we sometimes do just like the pendulum swings, either all collaboration or all cooperation, and I don't think that works. We have to have a healthy balance of both.
Sure, thanks.
I think one of the differences that I have seen, Vikas, in the current environment in the context of COVID is that, and it's probably a continuum in any case in terms of typical crises that organizations face and industries face, is the highly compressed time frame of the way changes were happening and the level of the unknown, so to speak, right? You don't know what this is about. We continue to not know many aspects of the virus and its behavior and its impact on the industry and so on and so forth. So the time to react or respond with the right strategy, right, changes to the vision become that much more difficult because you still don't know a lot of things. Do you see a difference in the way that such crises need to be responded to with the tools that you have talked about versus perhaps a more sort of run-of-the-mill crisis, if you will?
Yeah, that's where I like the Gartner's presentation or the visualization of the reset model, right? Where they talk about respond, then react, and then renew. Because what it does for you is actually, it says what needs to, it's like in our operations team, right? When we get a SEV 1, what do? In the first 4 hours, we want to just do enough to stop the bleeding. Then we take the element of the SEV 1 into a push. When once the workaround is in place, then we do the right root cause analysis and do a short-term fix. And then once that is in play, then we look at what's the long-term strategy for it to resolve it, and so that it's a now not just a bug or a pain point, but actually can I exploit that variability and actually start making money out of it. Now, similarly, I would say is what we should do in this. And if I look at the graph of when things started showing up close to the China's New Year's in January to when 9th March, we actually went into lockdown mode, right? There was enough time for opportunities, right? And one of the things I observed at that time, being part within the SA community, we started talking about remote training in that phase, how to set up, because we saw impact to training because people could not travel in China and stuff. And we started thinking about that. So when March 9th hit, I actually on March 10th could deliver a remote class because we had started building this and that, the capabilities in February, because of starting to see impact in January, whereas others did not think about it till lockdown happened in March 9th. So that is where, as a organization, am I looking at my market conditions in a true sensing and probing mode, or am I living within my own cognitive biases and saying that, you know what, Agile is all about face-to-face communication on-site together, and remote working will never work. But come March 9th, everybody knew a new reality. Agile can work with remote face-to-face communications. And that's the element, is when people say I'm an Agile mindset, that's great. That does not guarantee that you are a growth mindset. Because fixed mindset versus growth mindset, the difference is more than just being Agile. How strong am I with my cognitive biases makes me stronger fixed mindset versus how evolutionary am I with my mindset makes me more growth mindset. So where am I looking ahead? That is key to what am I actually looking at the information coming my way with an open end or with a bias. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. So folks, if there are any other questions, let us know. A couple of other comments came in because a few people are very happy to see your subtitle capability on the PowerPoint. So I have to say that I found it fascinating to see the subtitles at the bottom of the slide. I found them slightly distracting actually, because I found myself reading the subtitles rather than listening to you. The other thing I was intrigued by was the survey that you shared earlier, where I think the question asked for the companies was, how soon, once the COVID-19 ends, how soon would they be able to come back to business as usual, if I'm not mistaken?
Right.
And that huge majority thought that they could do so in less than a month. Was that right?
Yeah, 66% are saying. Now the question is, do they want to come back in less than a month, or can they come back to this thing, right? Because one key element is, I think, though the question was asked, when do you think you will come back? I think the answer is more coming from where do they want to be, because what they are discounting is in that happy space answering is how are their customers gonna come back, right? Because I may wish that I can bring, as a airline organization, I can bring all my airlines online in less than 2 weeks, right? But are my customers gonna come back into the plane with the same capacity to use them? As a hotel industry, I have been up and running for last 2 months now in full capacity, but are my customers coming in, right? So that's the key to answer there, and that's where I do see a little bit of a skew myself, where it says that 66% are thinking they'll be back up and running in less than a month. The question is, less than a month from when? Because phase 1 lockdown opened up, phase 2 is done, phase 3 is in progress. I don't know. So there, yeah, that's a good question mark there.
Excellent. Great. I think the audience does not have any other questions, so we will probably call it a day here. Vikas, thank you so much for your session. Great to hear your presentation, as well as the great questions and answers after that. Folks, if you have any other follow-up questions for Vikas, please get in touch with us. Actually, let me see if I can bring up the contact information here. Sorry about that. Should have done this earlier. So hopefully you can see this. Let us know, and of course, get in touch with Vikas for any follow-up questions. Looks like there is one more question that has come in. No, I guess people are just saying thank you. Thanks a lot for joining in today. We will share the slides and the recording of the webinar, as some of you have asked. Vikas, hopefully we see you on another session sometime soon. Thanks a lot, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks for the opportunity, Mahesh and digital team.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate that, and thank you all. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.